Welcome back to the virtual hanger. Today I'm going to show you how to make this super cute crochet sunglasses case. Your kit will include a little bit of purple yarn, about 3 yards, 5 yards of blue yarn, 8 yards of green, 11 yards of yellow, 13 yards of orange, and 25 yards of red yarn. One 5mm crochet hook, one 12-inch zipper, one plastic yarn needle, and finally one written copy of the pattern. If this is your first ever crochet project, you might find it a little bit difficult. I have 2 other videos that cover some of the fundamental concepts that you'll need to do this project, and I'm going to sort of gloss over them for this video so that it's not 300 years long. So, if you've never crocheted anything before, I would recommend starting on the Crochet Coffee Cozy video. If you've never crocheted in the round, pick it up at the Amigurumi Bear video. You can use the hook that came with your kit and the red yarn. That's the biggest piece. Just start crocheting, get a little bit of practice under your thumb, and then you can actually pull the whole thing out and it will still be good for this project. So I hope I haven't scared you away, but let's get started. So I'm using this little multicolored sample here to show you the only stitch we're really going to need, the half double crochet. We start by wrapping the yarn around the hook, pushing through the next stitch, wrapping and pulling through the stitch again. So now we have 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook, and then wrapping and pulling through all 3 of those loops. So it's basically like the single crochet. It's a little bit taller. It has like an extra sort of loop, and it will hopefully feel a lot like the single crochet. You're just wrapping the yarn one extra time before you start. I also hoped that by using 2 different colors here, that would help you kind of really be able to identify where the next stitch is supposed to be. I've heard from a lot of folks that's really tough when you're getting started crocheting. So here's the closer up view. You can see sort of where that stitch is, and then step 2, pulling through all 3. I'm going to just do a couple more here so you can kind of see how it goes in time. Of course, a little bit faster because of movie magic. And the half double crochet is the only stitch we are going to use for the whole thing. So you can see there what it looks like. And here we go. We are going to start with the purple. We are going to, doesn't matter what end you start with, just pick one. It's so short, it practically won't even get into a knot. Start by making our X here. I pinch it between my 2 fingers and my thumb to keep a hold of it. I take my hook, I grab the long end of the yarn and pull it through the loop we just made with the X, and then begin kind of pinch that loop we just made with the back couple of fingers on our right hand. There we go. We're going to pass it back and forth, and then we are just going to chain 1. This chain 1 does not count towards the end of the number of stitches in the row. So we're just going to continue as if it didn't happen, and we'll ignore it later. So we're going to do 8 half double crochets in the magic ring. Here we go again. See, I pull through the first time, got 1, 2, 3, and then I am going to wrap and pull through all 3 loops. Great. We're going to do that 7 more times. After I do the first handful here, 1, 2, great. Here comes 3. Once I have definitely got my magic ring done, okay, I've done a couple stitches on it, that's when I pull the tail to start to tighten that loop. And then all 8 stitches will be in that loop. And then once we get to the end, 8 here, you can see how I count. I will close the loop all the way. That's actually really important for this one. So take your time, practice the magic ring until you really figure it out. At the end of each row, we are going to join with a slip stitch, which is where you don't wrap at all. You just stick the needle through the next stitch there, which is actually our first chain. Wrap once and pull through everything on the hook. So it's sort of a little invisible stitch, and it joins the 2 sides of the circle together. Row 2, here we go. We are going to start with a chain 1, And it's really important for all of our rows to start in the same place. So instead of going into the same stitch as the chain, we are actually going to go into the next stitch. I left this part at 100 speed. Go back, rewind. You can see how this little chain stitch kind of leans over. That'll be really important when we fold the whole circle that we're making in half so that all of the beginnings of each row kind of line up and make sort of a seam. So the half double crochet increase is what HDC INC means. And all that means is you're going to do 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. So here's the first one, and then the second one will go in the exact same hole. So you're doing 16 half double crochets in 8 slots, and you're going to do 2 in each slot. I'm going to use a little movie magic here to speed ahead. There we go. Okay, still going. You can see the increases kind of make the hole a little bit bigger. And if you're a little bit more comfortable crocheting, you can kind of start to identify how many stitches you've done by the look of it. A single crochet or a half double crochet in one stitch is going to look different at the bottom than a single half double crochet would be. A lone half double crochet, we'll say. So see that big gap? I'm just going to count, make sure I've got 8. I should have 16 stitches total, but you have to make sure not to count that little funky chain stitch, which kind of gets eaten. There it is. You can kind of see. We are going to go in the hole there between the chain and the first half double crochet, just like that. And this is how we are going to change colors. Instead of looping with the purple to do the slip stitch, make a loop with the blue as best as you can, and go ahead and pull through as if you had wrapped the hook with the purple to do that slip stitch. Now just keep a hand on the tail. Make sure you don't accidentally pull this too tight. You can see I've got the tails on the back. You can kind of snug, tug them and make it a little more snug as you go. I kind of just hold on to the end of the blue with my pinky and my index, well, I guess my ring finger, before I get the next chain while it's still kind of risky. And then we will start row 3. So again, not in that one. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier to see in the different color. We're actually going over one, not in the same stitch that we do the chain stitch. We go over one to do our first half double increase. And then the next stitch will have a single half double crochet. I know it's really confusing with the single crochet, single half double. It's 1 half double crochet increase, 1 half double crochet. The cool thing about this pattern, if you read it all at once, is that it is very repetitive. So I'm going to try with the video to show the first set and then do a little bit speed ahead for the rest of it. So row 4 is the same thing. We're going to do 1 increase, so 2 half double crochets in the same stitch, and then 2 half double crochets, and repeat that pattern 8 times before joining with a slip stitch. Here we go. We're going to change color to the green. Same thing, you can see from a little farther away how I just hold the loop with the left hand and just make sure the tails stay out of the way as I start my next row. Here we go, row 5. I always forget, you can trim as you go. The purple, there wasn't really room, but you don't have to keep all the colors attached. So I've done 1 half double crochet increase, so 2 stitches in the same, and then 3 half double crochets, 1 in each stitch. Do that whole thing 8 times. We get to the end, we'll have 40 stitches and join with a slip stitch. And you can kind of see how the circle is starting to take place. Row 6, we're going to do 1 increase and then 4 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Do that 8 times. If you were trying to make a perfect circle, which I'm not, you would actually alternate the increases with the single half, the lone half double crochets, or the regular ones. There you go. Here we go. We're going to color change to the yellow. There we go. Trim the green. There you are. And loop, chain, and continue. 1 increase, 5 half double crochets, and then 8 times of that around. So as I was saying, if you were trying to make a perfect circle, you'll see as we kind of get farther into the pattern that it kind of becomes sort of an octagon. If you were trying to make a perfect circle, you would actually alternate each row. Instead of starting with the increase and doing the regular ones after, you would do like one row that way, and then the next row you would do like half of the individual ones, one increase, and half of the other individual ones. I think it makes the patterns a lot more difficult to read, and I didn't think that the octagon shape kind of I didn't think it hurt the final design. I think it looks really cute this way. If you are particular about your geometry and you'd like to make a perfect circle and you're feeling brave, just so you know, that's how you do it. And if you have any questions, of course, you can email me and I can try and find you a tutorial. So here we are on to row 8. I'm kind of glossing over a lot of this because it is very repetitive once you kind of get the pattern. Orange, here we go. Aren't you glad I didn't say banana? Sorry about that bad joke. Go ahead and switch to orange here. Do one increase, so 2 half double crochets in the first stitch, and then 7 half double crochets, one in each stitch. Do that 8 times. Go around and count 72 total. You can see as I count as I keep going because it gets harder and harder to tell just from sight how many I've done. I also hoped that by doing a color changing project, first you're learning a new additional skill. We haven't really done a lot of color changing yet. And additionally, that it would help sort of the problem of identifying where you're supposed to go in the next one is what I hear most often. So I was hoping that if we did the color changes, you would have an easier time identifying what the top of a crochet stitch looks like. And once you really kind of nail down that anatomy of a stitch, the whole world of patterns just opens right up. It's incredible. So that's a really huge hurdle for crochet. It's a really huge hurdle for a lot of crocheters. It was a really huge hurdle for me when I first started learning, and it took me a really long time to figure out. So if you don't feel like you're getting it, don't worry, just keep trying. The good news is you can always pull it out. The other cool thing that we have now that we didn't have when I started learning is Google Images. So if you feel like maybe a diagram would help you, you can always just go to the image search, type in half double crochet, and there will be a cool like step-by-step line drawing. We're going to get here, finishing up row 10. Instead of wrapping with the orange, we are going to loop here with the red and go ahead and keep going. So you can see now that I'm on the last one how the row seams are in kind of a straight line there. For this 11th row, we're going to do one increase followed by 9 half double crochets. Do that 8 times. At the end of the row, you'll have 88 stitches. And here we go. I forgot to trim off the orange. So the last thing I wanted to touch on, if this is not your first video with us, you know that I have anxiety and I always pull everything as tight as possible. And I've been crocheting for a really long time, so my tension is very uniform. And I would say generally my tension is very tight because I always am like, oh, it needs to be the same every single time. I should just pull it as tight as possible. Normally, I don't encourage that, and I don't encourage it here. I did try and really relax while I was doing this one to loosen up my hands when I measured how much yarn you would need. But if you get to the end of a color and you find that you're not at the end of the row for which the color is supposed to end, in this particular case, I would actually encourage you to frog maybe the last row. Frog is what you call it. That's what crocheters call it when you pull like a row out. You just keep pulling on the working yarn until all the stitches come undone. I would recommend you frogging back a little bit and working on doing it a little bit tighter, only because you don't want to make a dinner plate sized sunglasses case. So the tension will actually help keep it the appropriate size for the project, and more importantly, the appropriate side for the zipper. So last row, slip stitch. You can see there we've got our finished round. Just leave the red in the hook. That's fine. We're going to take our zipper and make a little mark up and down both sides. Make sure it's kind of centered. We're going to make 48 marks on each side, every 1/4 inch. So a 12-inch ruler will suit you just fine for this 12-inch zipper. And you want to make sure the marks you've made are even from one side to the other. So each mark should go straight across the teeth of the zipper and line up with the one on the other side. And I'm just using a pencil, something that you can see well enough to cut these into big enough holes for your hook to pass through. Believe it or not, this is the best way that I discovered to cut them. I just use an X-Acto knife on a mat. You can use a cutting board. You could use scissors if this is tough for your hands. The hole punch did not work, so don't waste your time. All right, to attach the zipper, we're going to open it up first, and we are going to start at what would be the top of the zipper. We're going to go into the next stitch where we would have done a half double crochet if we had chained, but we don't chain. And we're just doing what is essentially a slip stitch through each stitch and through each hole that we cut in the zipper. So you've got one loop on your hook. You are going to push through both the front of the stitch and through the zipper and pull one loop through both, almost like a slip stitch. There are any number of ways to attach the zipper to the crochet piece. If you have a way, if you have a sewing machine, you want to just sew it, that's totally fine. It is a little bit difficult to get the hook through the zipper. But the thing you would want to look up if you want a closer look at this is called surface crochet, and that might help you get a better idea of what exactly I'm doing here. But it's sort of a hybrid slip stitch. So I'm going to get down. I'm going to do all 48 stitches here on the first side with the zipper just fully open. As I get closer to the end, I think I zip it back up a little bit. It shouldn't really affect anything, but you can see I'm fighting with it quite a bit. When we get down to the bottom, we are going to have to do it a little bit more carefully, a little more thoughtfully, so that the back kind of tag of the zipper doesn't stick out. But we are going to zip it up just a little bit, and then when we get to the first one on the other side, unzip it sort of a little bit so you can work, and you're starting to kind of turn it from a flat circle into more of a taco shell sort of shape. And if we do it just right like this, you can see how the yarn kind of stitches right over the little ribbon sort of end there, and we'll keep it nice and neat. So once you've kind of gotten through that little weird part, you can zip it back up again and start doing it sort of on the fold. And that may be a little bit easier, and then do a few more, and you can unzip it again and do the rest just the same way that you did the other side. Again, this is physically a little bit challenging, I'm not going to lie. I ended up making the cuts about a quarter of an inch wide, centered in the ribbon. So, like from the edge of the ribbon to the teeth, right in the middle, where the mark was about a quarter of an inch long of a straight cut. I get through finally with my crochet hook, and it's all attached. So when we get to the other ribbon end, I actually am going to, however much yarn you have left, I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and trim so it's about a foot left here. A little bit of movie magic here because I realized the scissors were out of the frame. But just pull the hook so you've got it out, and then as you can see, I take that final loop, pull it straight out, and then thread the end of our needle with it. Go into the next stitch, and then actually the last two holes of both ends of the zipper you just do together. I then wrap around the two ribbon ends there of the front of the ribbon of the zipper, and pull it tight before I start to weave in these ends. So weaving in the ends is something we haven't really done before. You just take the needle and sort of uniformly, not uniformly, however you like, systematically, tuck in about an inch or two. You just grab with the tip of your needle the posts of the stitches. You want to do at least an inch, I would say, if not two, going through the one row of half double crochets, and then I always do way too many because I'm so nervous about the ends coming out, and I don't need to be. Um, yeah, I did way too many. You don't need to do this many. Probably about 6 or 7 stitches. And then you're going to make a 180-degree turn and go back in the same direction you came through a different set of loops. It really doesn't matter what loops you're going through. If you make a mistake, like it turns out I wasn't, I'm actually going to go through on the back side instead. It doesn't really matter. It would just be slightly less visible from the inside. So yes, here I am on the back side. I just poke the tip of my needle through to the back, and I'm just sort of systematically going through the loops, and then I'm going to actually change directions a third time just for like a final inch. I do 2 inches one way, 2 inches back, and then 1 inch the other way. And then I'm going to start doing the little baby ends I did at the beginning of each color and at the end of the previous colors. I usually start by putting my needle in, going one way, and then threading it with the little tail because the needle's only so long. Go about an inch, switch directions, go another inch, and then go a couple more stitches until um, you are satisfied. If you switch directions, that helps the end of the tail from coming out and being like an ugly little, fluffy. It's not ugly, but it's like visible. So, anyways, you'll get great practice at it because you're about to do 12 more of them. You can see here, I'm just going to go through and finish the rest of the colors, just going up and back each row on the inside. That way also if the tail does show as you're shifting I hope you use it as you shift your case around, the tails can come a little bit loose. Friction is what holds them in place instead of a knot. Switching back and forth kind of mitigates some of that from if you just go one way. Anytime you stretch it, the tail will come out and show. So just finished. Here it is. You can see it's just the right size for my sunglasses. I have been carrying this around for months. I've been showing it to everybody. I love this one. I would love to see how yours came out, or if you choose different colors, that would be great too. Please send me pictures of what you make, and I will see you next time.